I'm smoking a pork butt on my Weber Smokey Mountain 18-inch, and I'm going to be using a secret ingredient that Texas pitmasters do not want you to know about. Or at least that's what I've been told. So this is a bone-in pork butt that I got from Sam's Club, and normally I get my pork butts from Costco, so usually when I get my pork butts, they're boneless. So this is actually going to be the second bone-in pork butt that I have ever smoked in my entire life, and I will say that the first time I ever smoked a bone-in pork butt was pretty terrible because it was really early on in my barbecue career. But I hear that bone-in pork butts are actually juicier than the boneless ones, so I guess we'll find out at the end of this cook. Oh no. Dang. Well, okay, so I opened up the pork butt and automatically I'm already getting PTSD because the smell of this pork butt is so foul. And not too long ago, I smoked a rack of ribs that had a terrible smell coming out of the package, and basically they tasted horrible and they made my old country Pecos smell like death after I was done cooking. So with that said, I'm playing it safe. I'm gonna go ahead and just throw this away, and I will probably just pick up a pork butt from Walmart later on tonight. Okay, Walmart saves the day. So let's try this again. Much better. So pretty much right out of the pack, it's kind of ready to go. I only took off this little bit right here. And that's another beautiful thing about pork butt is on top of being cheaper per pound, in comparison to brisket, you're like trimming off like half of it. So you're losing half of it to waste or sausage or whatever it may be. You're not getting it in your final product of brisket. With the pork butt, straight out of the package, you can put it on and this is your entire yield right here. For seasoning, I'll start out with some pepper and then salt, but for the rub, I'm actually gonna be making my own. Well, sort of. So I am mixing together 3 parts Lowry with 1 part brown sugar and 1 part honey powder. Now, I have been experimenting with honey powder over the last few weeks, and so far, I really like it. So if you guys wanna give it a try, I'll have it linked in my description so you can click on it, buy it, and try it out for yourselves. So like I said before, I am cooking this pork butt in my Weber Smokey Mountain 18-inch, and I'm doing that for 2 reasons. So the first reason is that I left my Weber Smokey Mountain 22-inch with my dad back in California when I moved to Tennessee last year. And he's actually here visiting his grandchildren for the week. So I wanted to record this video to kind of show him a step-by-step on how to use the Weber Smokey Mountain so he can take some of those tips back home with him and apply it to his smoke. And the second reason is that my buddy John, aka Raleigh Smoke, has been telling me that pork butts on the Weber Smokey Mountains are actually much more superior to the ones that can be smoked on an offset smoker. And this conversation came up because a while ago I made a video on making a pork butt on an offset smoker. It was my very first time doing an offset smoker pork butt and it blew me away. And in the end of the video, I said that it was better than any pork butt that I had, including the Weber Smokey Mountain. But John let me know that in my previous cooks when I used the Weber Smokey Mountain, I was using it completely wrong. What I should have done is remove the water pan so that the fat can drip from the pork butt directly onto the coals, giving the pork butt an added flavor from those drippings. And to his credit, I have never smoked a pork butt in the Weber Smokey Mountain without the water pan, but his plan sounds incredible. So with that said, let's go ahead and get this pit set up. Like I said, not using the water pan, so I'm gonna go ahead and take it out. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and set up this Weber Smokey Mountain, and the way that I'm gonna do it is based on a method that I learned from Harry Sue. That's how I learned how to operate a Weber Smokey Mountain, and I always love how barbecue comes out when I use the Weber Smokey Mountain, when I follow Harry Sue's method. So make sure to check out his channel. I have that linked in the description below. But anyways, you start out by putting wood at the bottom of the charcoal grate. The reason why you do this and you don't want to put the wood on the top is you want the wood to smolder for as long as you can during the cook. And if you put the wood chunks on the top, they're going to ignite, burn out, and then that's all the smoke that you're gonna get. This isn't an offset, so clearly you're not gonna get as much airflow as you would in an offset smoker. So we're not looking for the wood chunks to combust and get our smoke flavor from that. Instead, we're doing it through a process called smoldering. So with the wood chunks buried underneath the charcoal and using the minion method, which is basically starting the fire very small on the top and letting it slowly go through the charcoal ring, the charcoal is gonna last a really long time, and we're gonna get that smoldering and those flavors through the smoldering that we're looking for to give us a really good barbecue taste. I'm using cherry wood and pecan wood because that's what I have. Just looked at my storage, had some cherry and pecan, and I was like, okay, let's do it. Also, I usually like to use charcoal briquettes when I'm cooking on the Weber Smokey Mountain, but I only have lump charcoal because this is what I use in my offset smokers. But honestly, it really doesn't matter, lump or briquettes, it's just get the barbecue started. And I think this cook is gonna be about maybe 8-9 hours long. So I think that this much charcoal is probably way too much. But charcoal isn't super expensive, so, you know, better more than less. All right. All right, now I'm just waiting for this to come up to temp. So I'm gonna cook this pork butt between 250, maybe even 300, depending on how I feel. You know, today's a work day, so I might get kind of tired later on, so I might want to speed this cook up, cook it at 300, so anywhere between 250 and 300. So I'm at about 2.5, 3 hours into this cook, and man, I forgot how easy it is to cook on the Weber Smokey Mountain. So after I put the pork butt on the pit, I just loaded up the car with some trash, went to the dump, stopped by Arby's, got a little food, came back, and the pit was still rocking at that 275, 300 degree mark. So let me show you guys what it's looking like after a few hours. So as you can see, the surface of the meat is getting dry, which is fantastic for us. So when I used to smoke a long time ago, I would say the last time I smoked on the Weber Smokey Mountain, Old Aunt would have sprayed this. I would have said, oh, look at all that dryness right now. This needs to be spritzed, but not the case. So what I'm waiting for is for this bark on this pork butt to get really dark. If I spritz right now, basically what's gonna happen is the surface of the meat is gonna get wet and the bark will not form. So it's all about patience at this point. You can already see on the money muscle, it's starting to get that bark. But anyways, looking pretty good. So I will check back in a couple of hours when it's time to spritz this thing. So at this point, I have not sprayed the brisket at all. I've just let it rock at that 250 to 300 degrees. And as you can see, that area that I was talking about earlier that looked dry, well, look at it now. You got a nice bark on it. You see, if we would have panicked and we would have sprayed it, that would be all washed off and slippery. All the seasoning would have fell off. So there you go. Now you know I wasn't lying. But anyways, it's been about 6.5 hours now, and the pork butt is looking so good right now. The bark is set and it's getting really dark, and the smells that come off of this Weber Smokey Mountain right now, especially when I lift the lid, like I am just filling the entire neighborhood with a delicious, sweet pork smell right now. And honestly, you don't really need to spray a pork butt, in my opinion, because for me, I kind of like the burned edges on a pork butt, because ultimately I'm just gonna pull this and make a sandwich, and I like those little bits of like burned pieces along with the nice soft tender meat on the inside. It kind of gives the sandwich a lot more texture. But for this cook, I am going to be spritzing the pork butt, because right now I am about to reveal the Texas secret ingredient to pork butt, which is chicken broth. Okay, so clearly I'm kind of like trolling right now. The Texas secret to pork butt is not chicken broth, and let me kind of tell you the backstory of this whole thing. So a few weeks ago, I reviewed Joshua Weissman's Texas brisket video, and in his video, I absolutely went in on his use of chicken broth on his brisket.
Don't put chicken broth inside of Do not put chicken broth inside of your brisket wrap, okay?
So admittedly, this was kind of like a hot take. I mean, come on guys, it's a reaction video. So I'm watching the video and I'm reacting. But there were just a lot of comments on that video about chicken broth specifically. Some people were serious, some people were really funny, and some people were calling me a chicken broth denier. So to appease the chicken broth truthers out there, I decided that I was gonna do chicken broth on this pork butt. And my main reason for doing this is just to show you that, seriously, I say this all the time, but it's absolutely true. With barbecue, there's no rules. As long as you kind of know what you're doing, anything works and you're gonna end up with a really good product. And I'm gonna show you that today with this chicken broth. And I'm just gonna hit up some of these areas right here that are kind of burnt, as you can see. All right, I'm gonna close this thing up so I can cut off the oxygen. Oh. But anyways, I think this pork butt is pretty close to wrapping, so I'm gonna leave it on for another like 30 minutes to an hour, and then I will catch you guys then. Okay, so about an hour later, and this pork butt is ready to wrap. The bark is looking phenomenal on this piece of meat. So normally when I wrap pork butts, I use Jerby Barbecue's method, where I put some sugar on the foil, and then I pour some water, make like a paste with it, and then put the pork butt in it. And then the fat from the pork butt, while it's cooking inside of the foil wrapping, it just melts together with that sugar, and you pour that back into the pulled pork, and it is so incredibly good. So being inspired by that, I'm gonna try something different. So instead of just putting sugar in the foil, I'm gonna do half sugar and half honey powder. And then to give it kind of like a hot honey taste, I'm gonna add in some hot sauce to that. And then to give this mixture that paste-like consistency, I'm gonna add more of our secret ingredient, chicken broth, to thin it out. That looks so nasty. Now it's time to put the wrapped pork butt back on the Weber Smokey Mountain, and then I'll show you guys the signs that I look for to know that the pork butt is done and ready to rest. Okay, about an hour later, the pork butt is done, and I'm gonna show you exactly how I know. So take your probe thermometer and just put it in. See, it just goes in so easily. You know, all of the collagen, everything has probably broken down. But another thing I look for is to see that it's temping at least at 180. And I'll explain why 180 is so important. So 180 degrees Fahrenheit is the magic number here because that is the temperature in which collagen breaks down into gelatin. So by ensuring that the pork butt hits at least 180 degrees internal as it's resting and climbing down after the carryover cook, we are ensuring that all the collagen in this pork butt will be completely broken down once it's rested. So for pork butt, I like to rest it at about 155 degrees Fahrenheit to 160 degrees Fahrenheit. And this is a lot hotter than I like to slice brisket at, but that's because, again, I'm gonna shred this pork butt and make sandwiches with it. So all the juices that I lose is basically gonna get mixed back into the pork, so it's not that big of a deal. And once it's rested, we will see how this pork butt turned out. Okay, so it's like midnight right now and my family's asleep, so I kind of have to keep it down. But the pork butt is rested and ready to pull, so let's go ahead and open up and see how it turned out. Look at that. So the bark looks a little dinged up because this is actually the fat cap side of the pork butt, which was on the grate. I like to put the lean side into the liquid when I wrap the pork butt because I want to make sure that the lean side does not get dried out while it's finishing in the wrap and also resting afterward. But at the same time, there's so much fat inside of a pork butt. I don't know if this actually matters, but it's just what I like to do. And I have to say shout out to Derby Barbecue because the next thing I'm about to do absolutely revolutionized my pork butt game. So let me show you. So you take your pork butt, put it directly in the tray. Breast feels really nice. Oh man. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually going to pour all that liquid, you see it? All that hot sauce, chicken broth, honey, rendered fat, sugar, all that goes back into the foil tray, and then I'm gonna go ahead and pull this now boneless pork butt. Oh, I only have one cotton liner, so I'm gonna have to just use this hand to do it because this stuff is hot, boy. Then as a final measure, gonna go ahead and go over this with a little bit more of the rub. Sugar got all stuck in there. There we go. Don't shoot. Oh gosh. All right, we'll clean that up later. Okay, mix all that together. Okay, let's go ahead and give it a try. Wow, it's odd, the smoke flavor tastes so different, but there's something so nostalgic about the way the charcoal tastes on the pork butt. That is really good. So much flavor. This is a banger. You guys gotta try this recipe. And again, goes to show you, doesn't matter, chicken broth, no chicken broth, do whatever you want, man. Yeah, this one's a banger for sure. Doesn't even need sauce. So again, I'm sorry guys, there is no Texas secret in this video, but recently I put out a video where I go over all the secrets and tricks I know to make Texas style brisket, Texas style spare ribs, and whole chickens, and you can watch that video on your screen right now.